Hi, welcome to this interactive live. So before commenting, can you please subscribe? It helps me keep this space intentional. You're welcome to join in or just observe. If you don't want to answer the questions, sorry about that. If you don't want to answer the questions, you are free to just observe what's going on. I'll be showing images of animals on the screen like you can see right there. If you know the name, just type it in the chat. No rush. This is just meant to be calm and entertaining. So as you can see on your screen, you need to name the animal and also tell us what the young one of the animal is called. Right, so you look at the animal on the screen. If you know its name, that's all right. You type in the name. If you also know what the young one of that animal is called, you also tell us in the chat. You need to hit the subscribe button first before you can start commenting. There's no rush. All right. Sorry, I was just looking for my other device so I can comment on that one. So what do you call the animal on the screen? What do you call the animal that is on the screen? I even know. All right, there it is. All right, so join in the chat. What do you call the animal on the screen? All right, so that animal that you can see on your screen, this one is not working. I apologize for the glitch. All right, it looks like. Looks like I'm in the wrong window. Oh yeah, there. And I'm just gonna put this one on a slideshow. Okay, so the animal on the screen is known as a dog. Right, I think that everyone knew this one. It's known as a dog. And the young one of a dog is a puppy. Okay, so the animal on the screen is known as a dog. Right, I think that everyone knew this one. All right, let's go to the next animal. Do you know what animal that is? That is obviously also easy for most people. That is also easy for most people. What do you call that animal that you see on your screen? Type in your answers. So this is meant to be an entertaining session as well as an educational one, because you have some people who do not have an idea of what an animal could be if we show a picture of an animal because of their geographical location. Probably they have not seen that animal before. It's very possible. So the whole idea behind this is to ensure that it is both educative and entertaining at the same time, right? So for those people that will watch this, most of you watch this as delayed video. You're not going to watch this as a live one. You have to subscribe so you can comment. Alright, so try and comment before I give you the names of the animals. Okay. Alright, so the animal on your screen right now is a cat. It's a cat. And the young one of a cat is a kitten. Right? Young one of a cat is a kitten. Alright, we go to the next animal. We go to the next animal. Okay. So our next animal is this one. Right. What do we call that animal? What do we call the animal on the screen? All right. So the animal on the screen is a rabbit. It's a rabbit. Does anyone know what we call the young one of a rabbit? What do we call the young one of a rabbit? All right. It's called the kit. Kit. K-I-T. All right. Some people call them kittens as well. I wouldn't know why. But they are also known as kits. So K-I-T. That's the young one of a rabbit. All right. Okay, let's move on. Now we have that one. What animal do you see on your screen? What animal do you see on the screen? Do you know the name of the animal? If you do, type the name. Like I said, if you are going to watch this later on after the live is over, you are still allowed to type in your answers. You just have to make sure, if you want to make it interesting for you on your own as you watch, you will have to make sure that you type in the answer before I say it. Alright? So what do you call the animal that is on your screen right now? What name is given to the animal on your screen? Alright. Okay. So that animal is obviously a horse. Alright, so most of you know these animals. But maybe what some of you do not know are the names of the young ones of these animals. Right? What do we call the young one of a horse? What do we call the young one of a horse? Do you think you know the answer? Young one of a horse? Well, in general, the young one of a horse is known as a foal. Foal, like call, foal. F-O-A-L, foal. But if you want to be specific, if you are specifically referring to a female version of the young one of a horse, a female young one, those ones are known as fillies. It's a filly. Filly. F-I-L-L-Y. A filly. Foal. And if it's a male horse, the young one of the young male horse is known as a colt. colt, C-O-L-T, colt. That's what they call the young one of a horse, right? A male one to be specific. All right, let's go to the next one. What animal do you see on your screen? What do you see on your screen? What do you see on your screen? Most of you will know that one as well. That's okay. Most of you will know that. So what do we call that animal on your screen? All right, so that one, that is a cow. Okay, that's a cow. That is a cow. What do we call the young one of a cow? What do we call the young one of a cow? Some of you will know, but not all of you. Some of you will know. Calf. All right. Calf. That's the answer we are getting from the learning desk, Kathy. Calf. That's all good. All right. Okay, we move on to the next one. That one. What do we call that animal? The animal that you see on your screens now. What do you call that animal? And what is its young one called? What do we call the young one of that animal? It's not a very common animal, but it is so common in some parts of the world. But not everyone knows this animal. Okay. So this is known as sheep. 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 Now, what do you call the young one of a sheep? What do you call the young one of a sheep? What do you call the young one of a sheep? Young one of a sheep is called lamb. Right? Lamb. 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 Okay. Let's move on. We now have that on your screen. What do you call that animal on your screen? What animal is that? When you look at it, what do you see? What animal do you see right there? All right. For those who want to chat in the chat box, or you want to send messages, please remember to subscribe. We do this often. We do this maybe once a week. All right. We are not always going to be looking at animals. Sometimes we look at other things as well. Just some entertaining and educational stuff at the same time. Okay, so if you come across this live session later on when the live session is over, please remember to subscribe so you can be notified when next we have our live. Alright. Alright, so the animal on the screen, what do you call it? That's a goat. Alright, it's called a goat. And what do you call the young one of a goat? Is there anyone who knows? Anyone who has goats near their house or home or living area? What do you call the young one of a goat? Young one of a goat is called a kid. You know, like the kids that we have, kids. So this one is known as a kid, K-I-D. Young one of a goat is known as a kid. All right. Okay, let's move. We move to the next one. Very common. What do we call that? What's the proper name for that animal that's on your screen now? What is the proper name for that animal on your screen right now? And also, what do you call its young? What do you call its young as well? All right, so obviously that is a hen. So we have two hens there. It's a hen. Okay. And what do you call the young one of a hen? What do you call the young one of a hen? Young one of a hen, what do you call it? All right, so the young one of a hen is called a chick or chicken. Chick, right? The little chicks that you see. Some people call them chick, some will call them chicken, but that's one and the same thing. All right, let's move on. We have that. What do you see? What animal do you see there? If you're watching this as a delayed session, or when the live is over, you're watching this as a normal video, please feel free to subscribe. Feel free to subscribe. We do such lives once a week, every Friday. Let's just say every Friday this time. So once a week we have a live session where we talk about such things. Sometimes we can be talking about different types of cars. We could also talk about different animals. Like you can see, it's essentially anything that I can assemble and come up with and compile if I feel like this is an interesting list, and it's also educational. That's what I want. I want something that is both entertaining and educating, so that you come out of this session more knowledgeable, at least. Like you have something that you would have gained. If you know everything, then that's all right. But there are some people who may not know everything. That will be good for them as well, to at least come out of this session with something. All right. So that is a duck. That's a duck and the young ones. What do we call the young ones of a duck? Young ones of a duck, what do we call them? Young one of a duck. That's a duckling. A duckling. D-U-C-K-L-I-N-G. Duckling. That's the young one of a duck. Okay? That's the young one of a duck. D-U-C-K-L-I-N-G. Duckling. Okay. Let's go to the next animal on your screen. Now, what animal is that one? We know it's a bird. Like, what type of a bird is it? Now, we have talked about 3 birds, I think, so far. And this is the 3rd one. So you see there are different types of birds. So what do you call the bird that you see on your screen? What do you call that bird that you see on your screen? What name do you give to the bird on the screen? That's an eagle. An eagle. That's an eagle. And what do you call the young one of an eagle? So this is the bird that flies high up there. That's one interesting fact about an eagle. It goes way beyond the horizon. Right. And it has a very sharp eyesight, this bird. It can spot a very small animal from high up in the sky, and it will come swooshing down towards the animal in one smooth movement. Alright, the young one of an eagle is known as an eaglet. Right? An eaglet. right? An eaglet. We move on. That's another type of bird that we have here. Another type of bird there. What type of bird do you see there? What type of bird do you see? What do you call that bird? Is there anything that is interesting about this bird that you may want us to know? But first things first, we need the name. We need the name of this animal on the screen. Alright, so this animal is an owl. Alright, it's an owl. O-W-L. Animal is known as owl. O-W-L. That's the name of this bird. And its young one, I'll give you 10 seconds. What do you call the young one of an owl? Alright, so that's an owlet. Owlet. Alright. Owlet. Now we have another one there. We have a new one. It's still a bird. It's still a bird. What name do you give to that bird? The new bird on your screen. What name do you give to that? What name do you give to that bird? What name do you give to the bird? Alright, so that's a parrot. Okay. Some people will say parrot, some will say parrot. It depends. Pronunciation differs as long as we converge on spelling. So that's a parrot. And what do you call the young one of a parrot? What do you call the young one of a parrot? Alright, so it's called a chick. Apparently it's just called a chick as well, just like young one of a hen is also a chick. Some people will say it's a chick. Some will say it's a nestling or fledgling. So when it is given those names, when it is nestling, this is when it is still very young and it still just resides in the nest. It doesn't go out. It's called a nestling from the word nest. Right? So it's a nestling. And then when it's learning to fly, they'll call it a fledgling. Right? It's now learning to fly. So it's venturing out of the nest at some point and it's learning to fly. They call it a fledgling instead. All right. That's what they call the young one of a parrot. It's either just a chick in general or nestling when it's still in the nest. Well, I want to believe that's the same for all birds. When they're just still in the nest, maybe they're still nestling. And when they're learning to fly, they should be called fledglings as well, because a bird is a bird. All right. What do you call that one on your screen? What do you call the animal on your screen? Not everyone knows these ones because not everyone lives in those polar regions where their habitats are found. So the habitats of these animals, in other words, their living places. Where do they live? Which types of environment do they favor? That's the habitat. So the habitats of these animals are found in very cold regions, right? So where there's a lot of snow, maybe ice, I'm not very sure about that, but the area has to be very cold. And like I'm saying, it's not everyone who has met this animal in real life. Like in my case, I haven't even met this animal in real life. I've only ever seen it on TV. Alright, but at least I know what it is. So what's the name of the animal on the screen? Oh, that's known as a penguin. Right? A penguin. Penguin. And what do we call the young one of a penguin? So this whole quiz session, is yes to talk about animals and check how much you know in the animal kingdom, but it's more for learning what the young ones of these animals are called, because that's what many people do not know apparently, right? So many people do not know the names given to the young ones of those animals. Just like when we say if it's a dog, we all know that the young one of a dog is a puppy. All right. Why? Because dogs are all over. Like they are almost all over, at least so everyone knows that the young one of a dog is a puppy. But there are some animals that are not very common, like this one that you see on the screen, the penguin. Not everyone has seen a penguin. Not everyone lives where penguins are found. So you may not even know what it is to start with, let alone talk less of you knowing what the young one of a penguin is called. Alright, so the young one of a penguin is also called a chick. For those who had got it right in the chat session or in the comments, if you are watching this after the live session, it's a chick. Alright, so the young one of a penguin is a chick. More like the chicken, chick, that what other animal did we talk about just now? The parrot, chick as well. And for a penguin, I don't know why it's being called a chick too. Maybe it's because it looks like a bird. I don't know, maybe. Alright, anyway, what's the name of this animal on your screen? You can see this is a water animal. It's an aquatic animal, which means it lives in water. Let's just focus on the large animal that we can see on our screens. What do we call that animal? It lives in water. That's one thing I can tell you at least, which you can also see from the picture. So what do you call the young one of that animal? What is that animal to start with? We haven't discussed that. What is it to start with? Alright, so that animal is a dolphin. Okay, it's a dolphin. That is the name of that animal. It's a dolphin. And since it's a dolphin, we need to know what you call the young one of a dolphin. What do you call the young one of a dolphin? The young one of a dolphin, apparently, it's a calf. It's known as a calf, like the young one of a cow is a calf. You know that calf spelling? That's the same as the young one of a dolphin, apparently. Apparently, the young one of a dolphin is also a calf. Wow. We are learning. If you are watching and you want to comment, kindly hit the subscribe button first, and you will automatically be able to leave your comment in the chat section. All right. If you want to give answers to the questions on your screen, you are welcome to do so. You are free to do so. Okay. What do you call the animal on your screen? Oh my god, it's really looking like it's going to come out of the picture and fly towards me. What do you call the young one of that animal, and what is that animal to start with? What is that animal to start with? If you know the name of that animal, let us know. Again, this animal lives in water. So for those people who come from landlocked countries, in other words, countries that are not surrounded by the sea, or that are not near the sea, you may not know this animal because it's not a forest animal. It's a water animal. All right. It needs to be in water. So what do we call that animal? Okay. What do we call that animal on the screen? If you know the answer, type in the chat. Okay. If you want to participate and you have not yet subscribed, please just hit subscribe, and then immediately you will be able to comment in the chat section. If you're watching this later on after the live session is done, if you're watching this as a delayed video later on, you are free to comment as well. Go along with us as we entertain ourselves, as well as learn one or two things about animals which you may not have known before. All right, so we have talked about 14 animals so far, and we are on the 15th one. And that animal on your screen is known as a seal. It's known as a seal. S-E-A-L. And what do you call the young one of a seal? That's the most important question. What do we call the young one of a seal? So we are talking about animals, their names, for the benefit of those people who may not live close to where they are found. And we also want to know what we call their young ones. If we say the young one of a dog is a puppy, what would be the young one of a seal? All right, so the young one of a seal is a pup, P-U-P, all right? A pup, P-U-P. That's the young one of a pup. That's what we call the young one of a pup. Please like and subscribe, and we'll bring you more of these sessions. Like and subscribe. Okay. That animal on the picture, the new one, what do we call that animal? It looks like it's going to swim right across the screen towards us. What do we call that animal on our screen? That animal is called what? What name is given to the animal on the screen? That's alright. What name is given to the animal on the screen? Alright, so that animal is a turtle, right? So you see, it looks more or less like the tortoise, but the difference between a tortoise and a turtle, from what I know at least, is that the turtle lives in water, right? It needs an aquatic environment, whereas the tortoise lives on land, all right? So the tortoise lives on land. I'm quite sure the turtle can come out of the water at some point, but they thrive more and live more, and their habitats are in water. Whereas with a tortoise, I don't know whether it goes into the water at some point or it just drinks it, but the tortoise is more of a land animal than the turtle. Okay. All right, so that's, and what do we call the young one of a turtle? Is there anyone who knows? What do you call the young one of a turtle? So if you're watching this as a delayed version, you are free to comment. All right, you can comment in the chat section. Right, you can comment in the chat section. I'll mention your names in my next live if I see someone who has commented things and they are getting the things right, even as a video that is no longer a live video. I'll go through the comments and yeah, I'll give a shout out to people who would have got at least 2 or 3 animals and their young ones correct. So what do we call the young one of a turtle? Well, apparently it's called a hatchling. Hatchling, you know, like when eggs hatch, that's the spelling. So you just say hatchling. So the young one of a turtle is a hatchling, apparently. And what do you call that animal on your screen now? What name is given to the animal that is showing currently on your screens? What do you call that animal on your screen? The animal on the screen is an octopus, right? Is there a name to the young one of an octopus? What do we call the young one of an octopus? Some of these things we need to know anyway, so we have to look for it, search it up. So the young one of an octopus, oh, is it? Young one of an octopus apparently is a larva, larva, L-A-R-V-A, larva. That's what we call the young one of an octopus? Oh, okay. Let's go to that one. Oh, our very lovely ones. What do we call that animal on the screen? Native to Australia, those animals. And the name of the young one is quite interesting too. What do we call the animal on the screen? Alright, so that's a kangaroo. Alright, that's a kangaroo. And what do you call the young one of a kangaroo? Is there anyone who knows? Young one of a kangaroo. Young one of a kangaroo is known as Joey. A Joey. And I've seen some people whose names are Joey. 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 That's the young one of a kangaroo. That's interesting. That's quite interesting. There's another animal on your screen. It's also native to Australia. All right. It's also native to Australia. What do we call that animal on your screen? What do we call the animal on the screen? Native to Australia, apparently. I'm not sure if it is found anywhere else. I'm not sure if it is found anywhere else, but I know it's native to Australia. What do you call that? All right, so that's a koala. Koala. All right, that's a koala. What do you call the young one of a koala? Should be interesting, this one as well. Just like kangaroo has a joey. How about a koala? What's the name of the young one of a koala? Oh, apparently it's also known as a joey, right? A joey as well, just like the name of the young one of a kangaroo. So it says here, just like kangaroos and some other marsupials, koala babies are born very tiny, the size of a jelly bean. Really? Then they continue developing in their mother's pouch for several months before gradually exploring the world. This is interesting. I've only ever seen kangaroos with their babies in their pouch. I didn't know like how big they are when they are born. So I'm being told here that they are born the size of a jelly bean. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, and then they develop inside the mom's pouch for several months before they can begin to peek out, show their heads out and stuff like that. That's quite interesting. I didn't know. It's an interesting fact to me as well. So the young one of a koala is also known as a joey, and apparently all other marsupials. Marsupials are those animals that keep babies in their pouches, I think. Well, that's my belief. Because at least these two do. All right, and what's on your screen right now? What is on your screen currently? The name of that animal on your screen is a drum roll. What's the name of the animal on your screen? So that is a polar bear. Is it a polar bear? Like I thought polar bears were only white, like they have the white coat. But I'm quite sure this is a polar bear as well. I stand to be corrected. I stand to be corrected. But that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that this is a polar bear, right? And if it is, we would need to know what the young one of a polar bear is. Okay. What do we call the young one of a polar bear? What do we call the young one of a polar bear? I just need to first of all confirm that it is actually a polar bear. Okay. The last thing I want is to tell you, give you poison here. I need to know that that is a polar bear. No, it's not. Oh my God. It's actually a panda, right? It's a panda. It's not a polar bear. It's a panda, right? You know how we have red pandas, and this one, I don't know what we call it, black and white panda. Yeah. So it's a panda. And what do we call the young one of a panda? Now we know the correct name for this animal. I knew there was something wrong. I knew it couldn't be a polar bear. I don't know why I went with polar bear initially, but I've always pictured polar bears to be white, to have a completely white, fair, white skin. So I don't know why I picked this to be a polar bear. Maybe it does look like a bear, but it's not. Okay, so the young one of a panda is called a cub. You know, a cub, C-U-B. That's the young one of a panda. So a panda, if you look at it closely, yeah, obviously it can be a bear. Bears are much larger than this. But it does look like a bear at some point. Like, no, I'll be pardoned anyway. Now, what do you call that animal on the screen? Look at it. What's that? I love its spots. I love the coat. What do you call the young one of that animal? And what is that animal to start with? Before we start looking at what we call its young, what is it? Because there are three versions of this animal which are very confusing, right? Well, they are all cats, at least they are in the cat family. But then they are different. Like, it's only people who really know animals who will be able to tell you that no, this is not that, it's that. No, this is not that, it's that. Now, which one is this one? All right, so this one is a tiger, right? Look at those spots. You want to compare them to the spots of a leopard, the spots of a cheetah. Look at the face, the eyes, the nose, and the type of spots that it has. All right, lock that in, okay, because we'll be comparing that to the spots of a cheetah, the spots of a leopard, because those three animals can really be confusing. All right, so yeah, that's a leopard. And what do you call the young one of a leopard? I'm quite sure it's still the same as the young one of a panda, or the young one of a cat, maybe, since it's in the cat family. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. It's not something that I've really looked for before. Oh, it's a cub. So apparently it's not being treated like a cat, but maybe it goes into the lion family, so it becomes a cub. So the young one of a tiger is a cub, right? So that was the tiger. And we go to the next animal on the screen. We go to the next animal on your screen. Right, what do you call that animal? What do you call that animal on your screen? The animal on your screen, what do you call it? So that one obviously is a lion. All right, that is a lion. There is no debate about that. That is a lion. And what do we call the young one of a lion? That's the thing that we want to look at. Young one of a lion is what? A cub. It's also a cub. Okay, it's also a cub. It's also a cub. Now we have that. Now, do you remember what the tiger looked like? Remember what the tiger looked like? So now do you see the difference between that tiger and this animal? Oh, the differences are very subtle, but if you are very careful, you can tell them apart. If you are not someone who has an eye for detail, you may not be able to tell these animals apart. What do you call this one? All right, so this one is a leopard. This is a leopard, right? That's a leopard here. And the difference between a leopard and a tiger, can you note the differences? Leopard and the tiger. It's very, 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 very small differences. I can only tell that this leopard is looking like it has brown fur at some point, unlike the tiger. Tiger looked more black and white. I'm not very sure. Maybe it's me. Or it was just that particular tiger. And the young one of a tiger again is known as a cub. Right? It's known as a cub again. Because obviously we are still in the lion family. And we have that. Now look at the new one. Look at the new one. What do we call that animal that is now on your screen? Well, now that one is a cheetah, right? That is a cheetah. And what do we call the young one of a cheetah? I think now we know. It's a foregone conclusion. We know. What do we call the young one of a cheetah? It's still a cub, right? It's still a cub because it is still in the cat family, large cat family at least. So the lions, cheetahs, leopards, tigers, pandas, all their youngs are called cubs. Maybe even a bear too. I'm not very sure. Right? right? That is an elephant. We all know that the big animal is an elephant. And what do we call the young one of an elephant? Is there anyone who knows? The young one of an elephant. What do we call the young one of an elephant? What do we call the young one of an elephant? That is called a calf. Okay, so just like the young one of a, what do you call it? A cow is a calf. Even the young one of an elephant is also a calf. And what do we have there? Next, we have 4 more animals. 5, including the one that is going to show on your screen right now. So that will be 5 animals. What do we call that tall-necked animal? We all know the name of a tall-necked elephant. Animal. No, it's not an elephant. That's a giraffe, right? Everyone knows a giraffe, at least, even if you haven't seen it in real life. But at least just looking at it, you should know that it's a giraffe. And its young one, the young one of a giraffe, is there anyone who knows what the young one of a giraffe is called? Well, it's also a calf. All right, it's also a calf. It's also a calf. Right. It's also a calf. Right, and let's go to the next one. So if you're watching this, like I said, if you're watching this later on after the live session, like most of you are going to, just please make sure that you like and subscribe. If you like the video, it means it's going to be distributed to more viewers. And if you subscribe, you will be able to comment, and you also be notified next time we have another live session. Maybe you can join in live if you're available and you have the time. Right, what do you call the animal on your screen? Animal on your screen, it's known as what? All right, so that's a hippo. That's a hippo. Young one of a hippo is known as what? What do we call the young one of a hippo? Young one of a hippo is known as, it's a calf again, because as you can see that it looks more or less like a cow. An elephant, you know, those mammals, big mammals. So it's also a calf, because it's, yeah, I think those animals that are big, like the elephants, the cows, buffalo, and this one as well. We also saw the other time that the young one of, was it a whale or was it a dolphin? Dolphin rather, is also called a calf. It's quite interesting. All right, and then we have that one. Oh, that one, who doesn't know? Okay, yeah, there are some people who cannot tell apart. We have a monkey, we have a baboon, we have chimpanzee, and we have a gorilla. Right, so we have 4 animals that are closely related, that if you are not very observant, you may mistake one for the other. Okay, you will mistake one for the other because they look more or less the same. But if you know your animal kingdom, you can actually tell. The moment you look at one, you know, nah, that's not a baboon, that has to be a chimpanzee, or that's not a chimpanzee, that's a monkey, or that's not a monkey, that's a gorilla, or anything, right? So what do we have here on our screen? All right, so that is a gorilla. All right, that is a gorilla. And can someone guess what the young one of a gorilla is called? Can you guess what the young one of a gorilla is called? So the young one of a gorilla is known as an infant. Just like we have our babies and their infants. So the gorillas, maybe it's because they are closely related to the human beings, to the human species at least. So they are also called infants. All right, so the mother takes care of the baby for a few years before they are completely independent, apparently. All right, two more animals there. Now that, what do we call that one? What do we call that animal? I think I've talked about it. There is one animal that I had mistaken for this one. And I was saying, oh, I thought this one actually had all white fur. Now, which animal do you think this is? So this animal now is the polar bear. All right. So this is the polar bear. That's the one that I had mistaken for the panda the other time. It just tells me that I don't really know these animals that much. So that's a polar bear. What do you call the young one of a polar bear? What do you call the young one of a polar bear? Oh, okay. So it says here that the young one of a polar bear is a cub. Oh man, so it's related to the lions? Yeah, it makes sense. It does make sense because even the panda's baby, which I said looked like the polar bear, was also called a cub. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of it. All right, and then our last animal right there is what? Everyone has seen this animal at least at some point in their life. Some have even been stung by it, but it produces something that we enjoy in our homes often. What do we call that animal? Oh yeah, obviously it's a bee. The animal is a bee. Okay, so it's a bee, and the young one of a bee is actually larva, just larva, because it comes from an egg, then there's larva, then there's pupa, and then there's an adult. All right, so that's the young one of a bee. All right, so those are all the animals that I had for you in this session. Thank you so much for watching. If you stayed for the live, and for those who are going to be watching this after the live session, maybe 2 days later, a week later, please hit the subscribe button and you will be notified when we have our other um, live session. All right, so you'll be notified and then you can join in if you like these kind of live sessions where we discuss and talk about things like that. Just simple quizzes, entertaining and educational at the same time. That is what I am all about. Okay. So have a good time wherever you are, and thank you for watching this live. I will be signing out for now. Thank you. Bye.